This is Beyond Average, episode 14.
The one thing we have in this world is we can't control the events, but we can choose what to focus on, we can choose what things mean, and we can choose what to do.
We're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Beyond Average, episode 14. I am Anthony.
I'm Corey Anderson.
And I think we opened the show last time talking about a hiatus. This was a real hiatus.
Longer than the last one?
Definitely.
Yeah, it was, I can't remember the last time we did one. But a good hiatus. You know, I've been busy with good things, so.
Yeah, but we're back now, and we're trying a new little camera setup here, so it's a little more intimate.
And what are we going to have behind us? Guess I'll find out when the show starts.
Yeah, right now we're sitting in front of a green screen, obviously, because you probably see some cheesy background behind us.
We haven't decided yet, so.
We thought about sheep for the sheeple out there who got the wool pulled over their eyes, pun intended. We could just be professional and do like a news studio.
Yeah, and then any other school animal, some fish or anything that doesn't, just blindly follows, where the leader's going.
Maybe
Which,
we'll
the leader never knows where they're going.
maybe we'll change it up a little bit.
But yeah, man. So what's new? You want to talk about what's new with us real quick? Before we get started on the topic.
Yeah, so we actually already recorded an episode about a real estate deal we recently did, and
not me and Anthony.
Gary Fair and I, who's going to be the next guest on the podcast, and unfortunately, the recording got all screwed up, so we're going to have to come back and do it again. That's all right, though. I think Gary likes to talk about himself just as much as I do, so I'm sure he'll have no problem re-recording it.
Yeah, not that. We did the podcast like 11 o'clock at night. Everyone was just drained, and so it was a good podcast, but the other one will be more lively.
It'll probably be even better second time around, so that's coming
for
for the next episode. But point being is that him and I did buy that rental property, so that's certainly exciting for a couple of reasons, but number one being that we talk about doing all these things on the show and how we're kind of on our way to doing it, and we actually started. So we'll talk all about that, but this episode is probably going to be more of a current events episode, right? I mean...
Yeah, with all the craziness going on in the news, man.
First, let's just mention this episode will be beyondaveragepodcast.com/014. So check out the show notes page, subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and we're going to have to put this thing now on to Google Play. So I think they host podcasts now. So
yeah, it's probably a nice little thing.
Yeah, so it'll be on there as well. And at the very least, please like the Facebook page. We're trying to grow that. You could find it Beyond Average Podcast on Facebook, and we certainly appreciate it.
And on Twitter, it's tweet BAP, right?
That's it. So yeah, I mean it's a crazy world right now. I think some of it's much ado about nothing. Some things are very legitimate issues, but obviously we just had the two men who were killed by police, one in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, one up in Minnesota. The circumstances of both of them are very different, but not so different in some ways, and that's just got people so divided, seemingly on two sides of an issue that I don't know. It just on the big picture, I kind of think that the media likes us to be divided, and the powers that be who are running this country for real are happy to have us arguing about these types of things, while they're siphoning the money out of the economy and basically decimating the middle class.
Yeah, and I think these recent situations, I think these are by far the most emotionally pulling on, because I've been seeing people, I just stay relevant. I'll just see what people are saying like on Facebook or Twitter, and I've seen people that normally don't say stuff saying stuff, and they either take one side or the other. There's very few people just riding the fence, just looking at the whole situation and the facts together.
Let's talk about that, because the one thing I noticed immediately was that every black friend I knew immediately took the side of sharing the Black Lives Matter posts and talking about how police were targeting black men. And I think that's probably the logical thing you would expect them to do, given the situation. And then on the other side, friends of ours who are cops or who have loved ones who are cops start supporting the Blue Lives Matter. And the thing that's funny about it is it's not one side or the other. I think 99.9% of rational people both agree that killing policemen, like what happened in Dallas, is wrong. And if a cop unjustly kills a black man for racial reasons, that's also wrong. You don't have to put 3 paragraphs on Facebook explaining that to your Facebook friends. Anybody with half a freaking brain understands that and feels that way.
Right.
The media would have you believe differently.
Right. And the picture is a lot broader than what we're seeing. And I've just been seeing some patterns just with the media. And the one thing with this last situation, as I was saying, like more people I've been seeing, people that normally don't post about that type of stuff, like it was everywhere. And I think because the one gentleman shot in Baton Rouge, there's one video I've seen circulating. When I first saw it was a very grainy video. I guess they're shooting from the door of the store. You can kind of see, I guess it's behind the cop's back. And when I saw on the news, it looked like it was shot with a video camera. Like it's very as real in real life as they're watching. And I think it's
well, the video that really catches you is the one that you stream live on Facebook, which was after the shot was taken, and that's really the one that I think you have to go off.
What I was going to get to is you're actually, this is the first time where we're watching people die on camera, and I think that really amped up the situation. And then you have a couple days later.
The fact that they were so close together.
Conveniently, now you got the 5 cops that were killed down in Dallas. Now, and I think that caused more of a divide because now you don't have the Blue Lives Matter shit. You know, it's no longer them defending themselves. Now they're on the offense too. You know, so you have these two groups bickering back and forth, missing the big picture that we have an over-militarized police and, you know, we have a real culture problem in this country. So, I mean,
I think we're both on the same side on this one. I think, it's less of a race problem. And you know what? People are going to get mad that I say that as if I'm trivializing something. But it's less of a race problem, I think, and more of, like you said, militarized police with ever-expanding authority, the shoot-first mentality.
And it really would, and this you can apply just about anything right now in the media, but it's a lack of context. Like we all stopped looking at context long ago, and I think that's what's causing the problems. We no longer look at the facts of the situation. We just go by off. As soon as you hear something, you know, boom, that must be true, and we're not looking at the context of the situation. We don't even know the facts. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So one thing I immediately noticed, because what I did with something like this, because this is not something about party lines. This is not. This is something you have to actually like look at and digest and kind of formulate an opinion, which is what I think I tried to do. But a lot of people who are way on one side or the other on this thing are they just reacted. And what happens is I think when you start sharing 10 in a row of these Black Lives Matter posts, and it's not your own work, it's somebody else's, you're just sharing it. It's so easy to click the share button and not even really read what you're sharing.
Right.
And the same thing on the other side when you share these Blue Lives Matter. And what happens is people are reading that online. They get so amped up as if like you might have not even thought twice about it. You just click share because you thought it looked interesting.
Right.
Somebody else is reading that saying, look at all these disgusting people, depending on which side you're on, sharing these things that are all bullshit. I better... And then that gets people amped up. And it kind of goes like this.
And the worst part about that is a lot of these videos and articles that you have, just what a lot of stuff in life, I call them bullshit sandwiches, is they give you a little truth, and then they slip some bullshit in there, and then some more truth. So you kind of consume all of it as truth, because, you know, there's a few true things in there, and then you consume some of the bullshit too, believing that to be truth. And I think that's done sometimes purposely, and sometimes people just are misinformed, and they, like you said, they just start sharing stuff that they don't really know. That's bullshit, you know. So that's, but
so what do you really think about the two shootings in particular, though? Because I kind of took a step back and I tried to read both sides, and I had friends on Facebook who were very outspoken on both sides of it. I kind of came down that, and I actually started looking at statistics because I wanted to make an informed opinion on it without just jumping to conclusions on one side or the other.
I mean, you want to, because here's the thing. I believe both. And I hate using this word sides because there is no sides, and we got to get out of that mentality.
The real sides is government versus the people.
Right, and that's what. But we're missing that.
They're distracting us.
And yeah, exactly. It's a big magic show, and you know, and it's. Do you want to form it like? Because I think both sides are right and both sides are wrong. I mean, you want to talk about which side you want to talk first as
Well,
wrong?
here's what I immediately looked up. I wanted to see how many people actually get killed by police, just people in general. And depending on whether you use the FBI statistics, come in something like 400. Independent websites that do it come in something like 1,100. Because I guess depending on circumstances, however they define it, it's different.
As technically killed by cops.
Yeah, however they do it.
That's
So
so many
let's
people
just
a
say
year.
it's 1,100. First of all, 1,100 people over the course of a year is like 3 per day. It's probably too many. I don't know the facts of every single case of every person shot by police.
I think, I mean, in a world that I think we should be living in, 1 per day. Cops were meant to be peace officers. You know, they're protect and serve. You know, protect our lives, and we don't bother them. They don't
And I
bother
think
us,
that's
and-
our position on it, is that whatever that number is, just looking at police and how many stories come out, there's too many people being shot by police in general.
Yeah.
Now, people who support Black Lives Matter are going to say, well, our people are disproportionately shot and killed by police. I don't know that the facts I looked at necessarily bear that out, because when you look at the facts, and these are facts, white people are killed more frequently by police than black people. And the obvious comeback to that, or not comeback, but explanation for that as well, the population is 65% white and the black population is
About 14%.
What is it, 14%. So obviously that makes sense. But the fact also is that black people have more encounters with police, and that might be a legitimate gripe. I'll give them that, because black people are disproportionately arrested, especially for drug crimes and nonviolent crimes, and that's disgusting, and we need criminal justice reform on that end. But they're also arrested more, not just for crime in general, but for violent crime, and that's probably because there's more cops and more problems in inner cities, and that's
Right.
happened to be where more black people live than white people.
And I want to add one thing to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not and again, that's not a black thing. That's a culture thing. That has nothing to do. It could have easily been the Mexican population. It could have been the white population. It could have been any population in these cities. I think it's a cultural thing.
And when you have such population density or poverty, and or some combination thereof, there's going to be more issues as far as crime goes. Like
Right.
you said, it's not a black, white, or Hispanic thing.
Right.
That's just what happens when you have cities. So when you look at factor
and then you
that,
start digging deep into hip hop and what they're promoting and all that stuff. You know, you kind of see where.
well, you could take that in
lifestyle-
10
yeah.
different directions. But
Yeah.
when you
So
when
we'll
you
just stick- I'm sorry.
Well, when you factor in the fact that black people have more encounters with police, all of a sudden the fact that a higher proportion of blacks relative to their population are killed by police, the statistics actually kind of match up. When you think about the actual number of people shot by police, 1,100, 3 per day, it's a really, really small number. And that doesn't excuse one single person from being shot by police who was shot unjustly.
Right.
All I'm saying is you have to look a little bit deeper and see, is there really some systematic problem or some systematic racism where black guys are just getting shot willy-nilly all over the country every single day by police officers. That's really not the case. And even if that happens once, that's once way too many.
Right.
But I'm just saying, look at the whole big picture and figure out what exactly are we dealing with first, and then let's see if there's actually a problem, and if there is, how do we fix it?
Right. And I want to go down that rabbit hole, I guess, towards the end, but about systematic oppression and everything. You know, we'll get to that definitely towards the end, because I got, you know, opinions on that. And
let me ask you this: do racists exist in the USA? And it's a patronizing question, but yes, right?
Of course, racism is built into our DNA. It goes back to.
Have you ever met somebody in your life who was probably a racist?
Yeah.
Whether you knew it or not.
When I go to New York a couple times a week, I walk through some areas are very welcoming, and it doesn't matter, everyone's cool. And then other areas, they kind of look at you like, you know, what are you doing here? Because I don't belong.
Perfect. Okay, so you've experienced racism as a white guy.
Every day.
We're not going to get
I'm
into
in New
that
York.
because some people who are going to tell you that because you're white, you can't even hold that opinion.
Right.
But let's just say, are people racist towards black people? Yes, of course. That exists. Do they murder black people? No. There's plenty of racist people who don't murder anybody. They're just assholes.
Yeah.
They're just pieces of shit. They're just racist. Just because a cop is racist, if he is, doesn't mean he's going to risk life in prison to murder somebody.
I think it's really a situation of just some cops just ain't mentally fit to be in those situations. I mean, that's kind of.
I think that's more the problem.
Yeah, right.
especially in the day and age where a cop pretty much knows every encounter in an urban area where there's people with cell phones, it's going to be on film.
Yeah.
Is it worth being a racist and murdering somebody you don't like and then possibly spending life in prison because you know someone's filming it?
Right.
I think it's much more complex than that, where a cop is trying to make split-second decisions and they might not have the training or the aptitude for that job, and they make mistakes.
Right.
And that's not acceptable. It's not. But it's not because the guy's wants to kill black people because he thinks it's...
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I have a problem with the three words of being prejudice, racism, and stereotypes. And all these words are thrown around so much. And it's like, you just look at the definition of all of them. Stereotypes, to me, are funny because a lot of them are true. When it comes to white people, too, and black people and Spanish people. They're all, not all true, but a lot of them aren't bad things, and they're just funny to laugh about. And so let's get that out of the way, that the stereotypes have nothing to do with hatred. And people throw that stuff around. And another thing is being prejudiced. It's prejudging a situation. If you're not prejudging situations in life, I don't know how you're making it through. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that doesn't
Everybody,
revolve around hatred. I mean, that's how humans, we get by.
Well, people associate prejudice with racism, and the two couldn't be.
They're far from each other.
They're not right. So,
and, you know, I was going to say, like, but, let's go back to tribal times where you have tribe A, tribe B. Tribe A comes over to hill. I mean, the tribe B is going to be a little on the fence. They're going to prejudge a situation. And they may race it in the definition of racism is just feeling a superiority over another group. So, I mean, again, it's not about hatred. Listen, I'm not making a case for any of this stuff. It's all anything involved with hating somebody, whether you don't know them, just based off what they look like, is wrong. But I just feel like these words get thrown around. No one really knows the definition of them. And, it just kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit.
One other thing I want to mention, too, is, I happen to be comfortable enough in my own skin to form an opinion and give my thoughts. I'm tired of white people having to apologize for themselves. Like, it's disgusting to me how, first of all, there's certain people from the Black Lives Matter movement who would tell you that because you're white, you can't have an opinion.
Right.
That's the exact opposite of what this country is all about.
Right.
I want to hear everybody's opinion, whether I think you're an idiot or whether you agree with me. I want to hear everybody's opinion.
It's called white guilt,
Yeah, or the idea that like white people should be apologizing for being white because, and I'm not even going to say the word. I'll say it once: white privilege. It's just a joke. I mean, there's so many people, no matter who you are, who started with less and achieved more.
Right.
And people are going to get mad at me for saying that. Like, you don't know me and what struggles I've had in my life, just the way I don't know you and what struggles you've had. Everybody's faced their own challenges. Some people more than others.
I mean, up until the age of 3, my mother, God bless her, she, we had a bicycle. That was our transportation. You know what I'm saying? I didn't come from a very privileged background. I had no privilege. And whenever I've gotten in trouble in life, I always got the worst of it while I watched people get out of it. So I had to always be very careful, instead of certain situations. I mean, I never once got the privilege of anything until I learned how to carry myself better, and I started making the better decisions.
I know black friends of ours who have had it rough, and I know black friends of ours who have had more than I've ever had.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
yep.
That's not to say that on a whole, black people might come from, on an average, a tougher situation.
Of course.
But all I'm saying is, just because you're white or you're not black, put it that way, that you can't hold an opinion or you can't have a thought about something is laughable.
Right.
And I reject that on its face.
Yeah, or that other, I guess, ethnicities can't be racist. I don't understand that one either.
No, there's plenty of black racists. I mean, there's plenty of Hispanic racists, and there's plenty of white racists.
Right.
There's probably Asian racists who, you know what I mean? It's just, if you take any group of 100 people, there's going to be one guy who's brilliantly smart. There's going to be a whole bunch of average people. There's going to be some people who are a little better than average. Some are a little worse than average. And there's going to be some who are just downright rotten people. That's just human nature.
It is. And
that exists across all communities.
Yeah, and I think it's, like I said, all this is the prejudice, the racism. I think it's built into our DNA, not to systematically hate people, but I think it's a survival thing. It's almost like you kind of stick with, because when you hang around people, again, go back to tribes, you're around people that look like you, they're like you kind of get that trusting out of the way, so you can start working on other shit, and you be more productive to your little group or society. So it's not, like, again, I'm not making a case for racism. It's more of the fact that
You're saying that there prejudice exists, and that's a natural part of being a human.
Exactly. It's about survival. In an ever-growing, more connected world, I think diversity is more about tolerance. It's okay to keep your cultures. It's okay to stick together. It's it's okay to have whatever pride you have.
And not only that, to celebrate your culture.
Exactly.
To celebrate the fact that you're different than other
I don't
people.
like the fact that things become like a melting pot. You know what I'm saying? I like different cultures.
In some ways, it's good. In some ways, it's nice that whatever group you're in, whether that's race or whether that's
right,
whether that's gender or whether that's hobbies or whatever it is, that's good to celebrate as well.
Yeah, and I think we can live in a world in all kinds of indifferences. We just have to remove the hate, and I think the hate comes from this media fueled frenzy, and that's what we're kind of getting down to today with this podcast. Is it's just don't start looking at facts and kind of come at things from an objective viewpoint where you kind of look at facts and you say, okay, let's look at this situation. Like every single situation is different. You can't apply this one to the next, and that's what we stop looking at the context of situations, and we end up in this mess.
Yeah, and if you actually look at the facts and you watch the videos of those shootings, and you still feel that, and for the other shooting in Minnesota, I haven't looked into that one as closely. That looks more like it could be a case of a cop killing a guy who was innocent. Now he had a gun on him illegally. It was in his pocket. Can you shoot somebody with a gun in your pocket? Yes, you can. I don't know how close he was to shooting that guy. I don't think the video.
Are you talking about in Baton Rouge or Minnesota?
In Minnesota.
Okay.
So I really can't comment on that. I would like to see the lapel camera to see exactly what happened. Because if that guy was reaching in his pocket trying to shoot the officer with his gun, that's a lot different than the guy's arm being pinned down and the officer shooting him.
Right.
One is a cop saving his own life, and one is the cop murdering that man.
Right.
And to the extent that a cop does murder a person, and let's say this guy who happened to be black, and it seems like that's been what's been covered in the news lately is black men being shot by police. These guys need to be prosecuted.
Right. Oh, without a doubt.
And I mean, I think once you actually put a cop on trial for murder and convict him for a crime he actually committed and was guilty of, watch how fast cops kind of reevaluate how they handle situations in which they know they're wrong.
Right. What I also don't want to see happen is I want to say an innocent cop, but one that maybe isn't. Maybe the situation is more justified. I want to see an innocent one slaughtered, thrown in jail just because, to prove a point.
Which is why the lapel cameras are so important.
Yeah.
And there should be serious penalties for lapel cameras that, malfunction or fall off.
Right.
Or, or are not working. Because we have the technology and, the camera don't lie. I mean, you learn that when you're playing high school football, the camera don't lie. And, when everybody knows they're being recorded, they tend to act a little bit differently.
Right.
That's not to say that the guy was going to murder you and now he's not, but everybody treats everybody with a little bit more respect.
Right. And, we can come back to this side of it, and I want to jump over to the where the cops are in the wrong. I mean, first of all, I think way too many cops, and I actually was going to become a cop, and the one reason I didn't is because I noticed a lot of people I knew that not all, because I know there's a lot of cops out there. I don't know if some are listening. There's some cops I know that are great people, and I'm very comfortable with them being cops.
Most cops I think, are good, decent people.
Right, and shout out to Toms River Police Department, because that's one area I still have respect for that police force. I've gotten tickets from them, but everything was always justified. I was always kind of treated with respect.
Now the argument is that, well, you're not a black man, so you haven't had the experiences other people have had. What would you say to that?
I would say, again, context. Now, we're talking about an area of Toms River, New Jersey. And it depends and it's sad to say, I think it's more of a class thing maybe. But I mean, it kind of depends on what kind of car you drive. Because, again, I was a young teenager, and I drove a car that was more, I guess you can say, young kids would drive, or it was a little beat up. You could tell some of that money.
And so you got treated differently than...
think that they're involved with something. Yeah, so
right.
I did get treated differently. And again, that's also in Toms River. I bet you there's, black individuals that got pulled over that driving a Lexus to the cop, very, yes sir, hello sir, how you doing? You gotta remember, like, in these certain areas, I watched a really good podcast, we'll link to it, Joe Rogan talking to that Baltimore cop. You see that one?
Very good.
And you gotta understand, like, in these inner cities, it's it's kind of a rumble of the jungle. Like the cops don't go by the same rules as these city cops. So you have a lot of people that don't live in these environments, commenting on this like they know, and it's like the cops have, and this ain't right. I'm not making a case for it. It's not right, but the cops kind of have to earn their respect in the streets, and they kind of have to punk people. And you see these videos of cops putting guns at people's heads, saying, you keep talking shit, like acting like gangsters, because they are. They're a blue gang, and they act like gangsters. And not saying it's okay, but that's the type of mentality that's out there. And you have to kind of look at the root of that, where that came from. But yeah, in these certain areas, I will admit, man, it's primarily black, and the cops act different out there. But again, if I rolled up and I had a bandana on, I was driving like a not so nice car, and I was acting like an asshole, no matter what color you are, if you're in that area with those types of cops, you're going to get that type of treatment. And I don't know about you, but I've been pulled over before, and I've been talked to aggressively. I don't like it, and I do cop an attitude. Difference is, again, in these urban areas where the stuff happens all the time, cops get this hard on for the guy in the car, and they get this authority thing that you have to listen to me. So when you say, I'm not getting out of the car and you can't make me respect the Constitution, they get a little butthurt about it, and they feel the need to rip you out the car, and then it escalates to these situations. And I think that's what I think it's also yeah, there's a crime thing going on, and there's another side to it. But on the Black Lives Matter, I guess, defenses, yeah, there is a problem with the cops being overly aggressive, infringing upon our rights, automatically trying to search cars. I mean, it is kind of gross, and it does go on everywhere. It's not just in the
and like
black
we already
communities.
said, it disproportionately affects black men in inner cities who are arrested for drug crimes
Right.
at like disgusting rates compared to whites, because we know the rates of drug use are roughly similar in many age brackets, yet they're prosecuted in the inner cities, and white college kids are not prosecuted to those levels. That is a problem.
Right.
And I've said that forever, but when you want to make the leap and say that, well, most white cops are racist and they just want to shoot black men, I have a problem with that.
Right.
Each case needs to be looked at on its own and evaluated, because to make blanket statements like that is disgusting, and it's
Right.
not true.
And in defense of the black community in these inner cities, I truly do believe that there is oppression going on, and not in the type of a sense that you're going for a job interview, they're not going to hire you because you're black. The sense that now this kind of naturally happened, and it played into the hand of the establishment, is that after, I guess, slavery ended and there was segregation, you kind of had black communities form in certain areas. And they kind of stuck together again, going back to survival. That's kind of built in us to kind of stay with your own people for survival, because again, you get that out the way, that you can trust them,
Right.
and you can move on to more productive shit. So it kind of doesn't help the fact that major black communities are in 10 cities across the country, and the rest of it's a bunch of white hillbillies in between. And so you have these
So many white hillbillies.
black
in there.
individuals that are in these certain areas, and it was very easy for, I think, the establishments to dumb down the education, because those are some of the worst schools in the country are in these inner cities. They built prisons right across the street from the schools, and the schools they go to are kind of like prisons. To me, I think they're conditioning them to be okay with being metal detectors and guards and cops, and they kind of give this culture and way of life to them that they take the jobs are out of the cities. There's a lot of welfare, a lot of people just sitting around all day, and it's just like, what do you think is going to happen when you take people's education away and you give them guns? And it's like, so they are kind of victimized in that sense. And
Well, I think that's the point we're making, is that
nobody's innocent here.
while there's certainly problems on both sides of the argument here, I think just the premise that and the one thing I'll say is I definitely agree with the sentiment of people who are supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. I just don't agree with the leadership of it, who is really trying to drive a wedge between people and not bring people together. They're trying to spread the idea that white cops are racist, they're going to kill our black men, and we need to change that. That I don't agree with that. Are there bad cops? Yes. Are there mostly good cops? Yes. Are the bad cops going to just go murder black people because that's what they want to do? That's really not how it happens. The statistics don't bear that out. And for leadership of the Black Lives Matter movement to be saying that is dishonest at best and racist at worst. So while I agree with the sentiment of people who don't want to see this happen, I don't think you're exactly understanding the bigger picture completely. And you know what? Someone's going to say, what do you know? You're some white guy who's never been roughed up by the police. You can't even have an opinion on it. I can have an opinion on it. And you know what? That is my opinion. Whether or not maybe I have a more objective view because I'm not the one who had somebody who had a bad experience with a cop. You need to listen to all sides of the issue.
Right, and you got to keep in mind, like I've never benefited from white supremacy or slavery or racism. Like I have no dog in the race with that. Like I don't like that happens. I really don't. And I think for the sake of the world, not just our country, I think we need more freedom. I think our freedoms are taken away. So I don't agree with all the stuff that goes on by any means. It's just I just don't like being told, like you said, you can't have an opinion all because white males in this country for some reason they're irrelevant now.
Oh yeah, or the idea that you have to apologize for being white, which is just
Right.
what so many of my liberal friends are doing. And it's disgusting. Listen to the facts and form an opinion of your own. What do you think? You're a good person because you share a Black Lives Matter thing, and you think, oh, good, I'm no one can get mad at me now. No, why don't you actually read what happened
Right.
and form an opinion? If you still feel that way, that's great. If you feel a different way, that's fine too. But most people are just blindly following the herd, like sheep, like we say, and trying to be the good guys. Like, I mean, you post a status about we need to all come together. Like, what does that mean? Like, what is that accomplishing?
Right.
Are you just trying to? I mean, it's selfish. Actually, I think it's just you trying to say I'm not part of the problem.
Right.
You don't really care. If you really care, you wouldn't just be posting a Facebook status.
Right. And that's the sad thing is like people will probably disagree with what we're talking about now. And it's like I kind of care more about this than those liberals posting that shit because I wanted to see it then. And not just because I don't think it's right, but for selfish reasons as well. I do have a dog in the fight in the sense that once they're done with all these other classes of people, like who are they coming for next? Like this ain't just to affect one person.
I mean,
eventually they're going to be wanting taking everybody's freedoms,
Meanwhile, we're arguing about this, which is a legitimate issue. Don't get me wrong. We need to talk about it. But
of course,
while we're arguing about this, the middle class is getting absolutely wiped out. It's becoming rich and poor. There is no more middle class. It's
Right.
shrinking by the day. And, the people who are buying off the government are getting richer. And the working man, you ever watch A Bronx Tale? The working man's a sucker.
yeah,
He's becoming a sucker because the value of his dollar is going away. His wages are stagnant. And everybody's a little bit more worse off every single day, while the people who are buying off our government are doing better and better.
Yep.
Meanwhile, we're arguing over not only important issues like this, but we're also arguing over many stupid issues that really have nothing to do with anything.
right.
It's all a big distraction.
It really is, and it's just like the big problem is like, what do you think is going to happen when you have very mentally unfit guys becoming cops because they want pensions, and then they're taught that's the noble thing they were told to do when they were younger, and then
Let's
jump
talk
into
about
jobs
that because I think the problem with people getting shot by police, like I said, is less race, and it's more about the militarization of police.
right,
What do you think?
and the fact that some of these cops that have no right being cops, they're not mentally prepared to handle these situations. In both situations, the cop is, especially in the one with the guy shot in Minnesota. The cop is shaking. His hands on the gun. It's off the gun. It's all. He's
He
like
didn't look like he was
just
in the
kept-
proper position to
No.
restrain that guy.
No, and he looked like he was scared. And again, I think it goes to insecurity. Like they don't feel secure in themselves to defend themselves, and they're so quick to pull out a gun and shoot. And I hate that attitude where it's it's my life or theirs. Well, if that's the case, then I think we all should have a gun on the holster at all times. We're gonna go back to the wild west if that's the attitude we're gonna have. I don't understand where this notion comes from that all because you got a badge you can talk to me like I'm a piece of shit. I don't understand that.
You're just a person, just like I am.
Exactly. You're
If I break the law, you can arrest me, but until I do that, you should be showing me the
Right.
same amount of respect that I should be showing you.
Yeah, and I was saying earlier, life's a big costume party. We all have a part to play. We all play it, and we all dress up. And
Right. At the end of the day, you try to
You're just
provide
a
some
person.
value to the economy to make some money, whether you do it by wearing a police outfit, a nurse's outfit, or you wear a suit and tie. excuse me, we're all just trying to make a living. You happen to be wearing the policeman's outfit.
Doesn't give you a special right over us.
It doesn't give you a right. You're not on some moral high ground.
Exactly. And then on top of that, I got a theory that a lot of these mental health tests they do on the cops before they hire them. I think it trickles down from orders from the very top to purposely hire people that aren't supposed to be in those situations that maybe aren't mentally fit to be cops, because I think this is something, again, this situation we're seeing is being perpetrated on purpose because they want us divided, not united. And I think that when you got cops that aren't mentally, that are going to make these mistakes, and then you got these Black Lives Matter, which I think that and both that and the LGBT community, I think they're both toxic. Well, not so much the LGBT, that the whole feminism and this I think we're getting lost. It's almost like we're trying to.
Well, they call it this third wave feminism, where like the feminists from like the 60s and 70s who really fought about equality are not disgusted with these people, and it's like a toxic thing where their message is about hate. If they could erase every man from the planet, they would.
Exactly.
And that's what's getting spread. And it's not about love and equality. It's about oppression. And
exactly.
And similar to the Black Lives Matter in this respect, if you even have a differing opinion, you're not allowed to.
You're just a piece of shit.
You're a piece of shit, and they want to shut you down.
Right.
You can't even have a civil debate about it.
Right. And the sad thing is, I think the establishment is using these people as a battering ram to take our rights away and to create this weird world we live in where, you can get fined in New York for not calling someone a zoo or a gu or a ziju. All these fucking different
there's
pronouns.
Actually legislation, I don't know where it is, where
it's in New York. You
if
get fined
if you don't use the proper pronoun, you can get fined up to $250,000. That's one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard. If I want to call you late for dinner, it should be my right to call you whatever you want.
Exactly.
If I'm not hurting you and you're in my place of business, and I call you, I use the wrong pronoun, which are all made up pronouns, by the way.
Right.
It's like, if you want to, you can identify as whatever you want. I think we're both cool with that.
Yeah.
You want to say you're from Planet Zulu or whatever, and you got different pronouns, Z's, whatever.
But don't sit there and enforce that upon me and make me make a separate
and bathroom. But that's the problem, though, is that they're actually getting legislation passed now.
Well, you want to know why? Is because they have pull. Like, they can yell and cry. I think Milo was talking about. Maybe we'll link to that one too. That was a good podcast as well.
The most recent Joe Rogan episode, or maybe 2 ago, with this guy Milo Yiannopoulos, who has been
people hearing his name now. I've been listening to him, I guess, since it wasn't so popular, but he's getting a little crazy now.
Well, he says some things to troll people and just get people riled up, but he makes some good points. And the funny thing about him is that he's so flamboyantly gay,
painfully flamboyant, just so over the top,
and loves it. He loves everything about it, which is great because, first of all, this is funny. America. You can do whatever the hell you want, and he's really funny. And his whole thing is that he doesn't really have a dog in the fight. So when it comes to, this toxic masculinity, as they say, which is they just have all these crazy made up terms. He doesn't have a dog in the fight because he's a gay man, and so he points out all all this hypocrisy and all this hate. In a very well thought out argument, and basically puts these people to shame.
Yeah, and I think if you're a part of these safe zone communities, and obviously these people aren't going to be hearing this podcast because they're not beyond average.
They'll probably find it,
and I hope they do, because I just want to say, cut the shit. Like, stop being so afraid of having a wrong opinion. Like, I think about like this: that of the 7 billion people in the world, what are the odds that your opinion on everything is right? Like, what are the odds of that everything you think is the right way of doing it?
It's funny you say that, because one thing I was going to mention when I was talking about statistics before about police encounters with black people versus white people and people killed by police, if someone thinks I'm wrong, I would love to have them on the show, whether they want to call in or whatever, and let's talk about it.
Of course.
Because if you want to, please change my mind on something. That's how you grow and learn. And if you think I'm wrong or I'm ignorant on something, let me know about it. But these people you can't talk to.
No. That's the thing, that's that. And I listen to the people that are, you can kind of tell by their tone, their intention, that who the truth seekers are and who the people are just trying to perpetrate their own opinions on others.
He made some really good points about the whole, the transgender community. And if you want to be transgender, that's fine. But how about, he thinks it's more mental illness, and how 40% of the people who get the transgender surgery want to undo it.
And I think half of them end up committing suicide, like later on in life. That's another.
Yeah, there's some serious issues there. And he was his point, I think, was that earlier in life, when a kid is confused, he might just be gay.
Right.
He's just gay. And, now these kids are being told, well, you're transgender. And now this kid, at a time when when you're 13,
all your neural pathways or everything's just getting concrete.
You're not even half the person who you're going to be when you're a fully formed adult. I think we're just at the age now where like your frontal lobe is fully developed, where you kind of know who you are and what you're all about and have a better, more clear idea. But now you have kids 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Instead of kind of growing and figuring this out on their own, they're being told they're transgender when they might just be gay.
Right.
And it does a lot more harm than good in some cases.
No, I completely agree.
He wanted to ban. He actually was in favor of banning transgender surgery in some cases where the person was diagnosed with mental illness, because he said mutilating your genitals is not something that you can just undo.
Right, and that's the thing too. If like for example, like you think a doctor would let somebody, and that's extreme example, but like say somebody thought that they were a war veteran. And they want to cut their leg off. They want to cut their leg off because they thought they were an amputee.
You would say, this person is sick. We need to help them.
Right. You're not going to let them just do that. And I hate the idea that gender is a social construct. Like,
no, gender's biological.
It's biological.
X and Y.
That's just it. Yin and yang.
Now, if you listen, and I'm not saying all transgender people are mentally ill. What I'm saying is you need to look at it more than just at face value. And if you want to say I identify somewhere between male and female or somewhere outside of that spectrum, that's fine. But when it comes to biology, that's not true. And
of course,
you can go around and say it's your right to say it's a social construct, and it's my right to say it's not. And the science would back me up. But I think people should just do whatever makes them happy.
As long as you're not hurting nobody else.
You just can't force that view onto other people.
Once we got to start changing building codes and building a third bathroom for the people that are in between, then I think we have issues.
Yeah, I mean, if it's my opinion that, let's say Target, for example, is a private company. They're not government. So if they don't want to have a third bathroom, that is well within their right.
Right.
And if you don't like it, guess what? You don't have to shop there. Now, if Target wants to get the support of the LGBTQ community.
Oh, I forgot the Q.
Yeah, if they want the support of that community, then they will put a third bathroom in there.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit more difficult when you talk about putting third bathrooms into schools, because you're talking about how many millions of dollars that we don't have to outfit bathrooms that have been totally fine for hundreds of years. That's a little bit more of a complex issue.
Right. And I hate the argument that they have, like, oh, so everyone's so scared of transgenders when they, like the men's that now can use women's bathrooms. And it's not the transgenders that me personally I'm so worried about. It's the guys that are perverts that see that as an opportunity just to throw a wig and a dress on and say, oh, I'm a girl today, just to get, a free ticket into the girls' bathroom.
That's a legitimate issue that there's really no good answer to. Now the incidence of that actually happening is very small, as well as the incidence of a transgender person needing to use that restroom, because both of those things are very rare in society, statistically speaking.
I don't know. I just think if you have a penis, you go into the one bathroom. If you have a vagina, you go into the other one. That I don't know. It's worked for so long. I don't see why we got to change it now.
Yeah, and you know what? Rogan makes a good point. Joe Rogan. He always says this. He says we've got so far along as a society now, we've kind of run out of shit to get really upset about. Like, things are pretty good. Technology's advanced, but to a point, and like it's like people kind of ran out of things to get mad at, and so they're kind of inventing things now.
But here's the thing. We've kind of come full circle here that we're in the Western civilization. We're as part of known history, at least the one that we're told in our schools. That's another show, but at least the history that we're taught as known history. This is the greatest civilization that ever existed.
Right.
I mean, you can't really argue that. The far as medicine, science. I mean, everything is so far advanced. Like. Listen, there was a problem once in this country with women's rights being suppressed and black rights being suppressed, and of course that was an issue, of course, but we're no longer at that point.
Look how far we've come from those things.
Exactly, and we're no longer at that point anymore, and it's like we're kind of going back to that because again, I think it's being perpetrated by the media for distraction of the real issue, that we don't no longer have a viable presidential candidate has turned into a fucking joke. And, laws are being passed, by the day that are infringing upon our rights. And to me, I think this whole thing was a convenient distraction for everybody. And they took this thing and they ran with it, the whole thing recently. Because just then, basically, the FBI came out and named all this stuff about Hillary. And they gave the recommendation, not to lock her up, of course. But, that kind of blew right over, And
on to
the next.
Yeah.
And what kind of gets me too is you go back to, and I don't know if people kind of follow things. I kind of follow the trend of things, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but it's kind of been black issue, gay issue, black issue, gay issue. It's kind of
What happened to when did we talk about the economy? We haven't,
Exactly, and I think it's been a distraction going back and forth, and they're trying to beat these things down our throats to kind of say this is what you should be worried about. Don't worry about anything else. And the problem with that is, again, you go back to the Orlando shooting, for example. A lot of weird facts started coming out. The fact that nobody technically died till 5 a.m. The fact that there was just way too many bullets everywhere to be one person. There's just all these different facts started coming out. And actually, a ex-judge got on TV talking about the fact that nobody was really murdered until the SWAT team showed up.
Well, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole with you, but...
my point being is the fact that once these questions start getting asked, just like any good magician... you direct their attention somewhere else. And
one thing I'll mention on the Orlando shooting,
which
is
that you saw the black stuff start happening. After, once the question being asked, everyone kind of forgets about the Orlando. Now we're on to this issue, and then you kind of got to ask, what's the next one going to be?
Yeah, on the Orlando shooting, they immediately wanted to make that a gun rights thing, because anytime they, people literally just died and they want to make it a. And you know what? Shame on both sides, because the left wants to make it a gun rights issue. They want to take away the guns, and the right wants to make it a Muslim issue before we've even had a chance to mourn for the people who were murdered.
Right.
But if you notice, when they brought the transcripts out of the guy who did the shooting, they removed every reference to Allah or Islam, and that was totally disingenuous because he was pledging his allegiance to ISIS and. Talking about he did something in the name of Allah.
Which doesn't make sense to me, because I would think that the establishment would love to put more Muslim propaganda out there.
Well, not the left, though.
Not the left, which is probably...
The left wants it to be about guns, and the right wants it to be about religion. And
so you think that they erased the Muslim thing out of there just to take it away from that? And
they did. You can look that up. When
the
and they had to release the real transcripts after because they got called down. People were like, what
you're saying is you think they secluded the Muslim stuff because they wanted us to focus on it's a gun thing.
I wholeheartedly believe that.
Which again, we don't have a gun problem in this country. It's a mental health issue, and there's much more to it than.
Well,
it drives me crazy that how misdirected our energy gets sometimes.
Guns is probably a whole separate episode, just like the education system. But the point was that the government was hiding information regarding that, and how are people supposed to make opinions about something when they don't get all the information? Which is why you can't watch the mainstream media.
No, and I say
they're literally directing you to whichever way they want you.
Right, and I've said this a couple of times to you and probably to other people, but I think it's very strange that we're living in a time where, the fictional movies that we watch, the Jason Bourne movies, and all this different dystopia movies that come out, they're a lot closer to reality than the actual news we watch, which to me is 100% fictional bullshit.
It's like a puppet show.
It is, and that to me kind of scares me. The fact that this reality basically was created for us, and it's being shoved down our throats that this is what's going on, when it couldn't be further from the truth. You know, you got these sick guys at the top; they're just siphoning off all the wealth while we're all getting crushed.
So we'll wrap this thing up. But I think just in closing, if you've watched this far, I think our position really on the whole Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter for that matter movement is. Being a police officer is really an impossible job where you're making split-second decisions where if you do one thing, you murder somebody, or if you do another, maybe you don't react quickly enough and you get shot in the line of duty. I could never do it. I can't imagine somebody who actually does have the aptitude for something like that. It's such a difficult thing to do. And my hat goes off to all the people who do it the right way because it's literally an impossible job. I mean, it's so difficult. And as we said, there's a couple bad apples. Doesn't necessarily mean they want to systematically shoot black men every chance they get. especially when you look
I
at the
think
statistics.
the establishment at the top wants that. I don't think it's a black thing. I just think they feed off of this negative shit going on in the world.
So, yeah. And so while I think we agree with the
yeah.
sentiment of the Black Lives Matter supporters that there's a problem with people getting shot by police, I think our opinion, well, my opinion, you could comment, is it's less about a race thing and it's more about militarized police with a shoot first attitude and, growing more and more their duties and their authority is growing more and more by the day. So,
Right.
I think the real problem with police officers, to the extent there is one, is that a lot of people who want to be police officers probably shouldn't. The people who would be good police officers a lot of times are in different fields.
Right.
And so you get a lot of good cops and you get some of these guys who are probably way too aggressive and maybe don't have the aptitude to be, a model police officer.
I was going to say that the grand conspiracy I think of, at least with this, is I think some of these cops are purposely hired that maybe ain't right to do the job. And you put them in situations where they do have to make these split-second decisions, and the people, and again, it's not the superior officers; these are orders coming down from the top to hire certain people. I mean, it's, the thing that bugs me is I think a lot of these cops, whether purpose or on accident, are in positions that they should not be in, and then you mix that with a culture that is constantly being told, "Fuck the police, fuck the police, fuck the police," and they're constantly being treated like shit by the police. You end up in this situation where becomes a team thing, and then it becomes a team thing in these certain areas, and then it gets thrown on the media, and it becomes a team thing for the whole United States. And I think that's kind of where we're at. I think it's both sides. There's issues with both sides, and we need to really, as a country, kind of take a step back and take a real look at some of the shit that we talk about, and just look at the facts and just be a little more objective in your beliefs. Again, what are the odds that you are the one that's right in everything you believe in this world?
And unfortunately, the fact is, if you were a Black Lives Matter supporter and were getting on Facebook arguments with people who had any differing opinion, our podcast probably didn't change your mind, but I would like to hear what you have to say. I mean, please comment on this video or comment on the Facebook post, or reach out to us directly because we want to talk about it.
Yeah, context, people. Context. Context is everything.
And you know what? I wish more people felt comfortable enough in their own skin to actually talk about it instead of just towing the line, trying to make a Facebook post about how we should all love each other and basically saying it's not my fault. So I did my piece. I put my Facebook post up saying that this was a terrible tragedy and we all need to love each other.
Right. And I forget who said this, but it's so funny and so on point. What I think about those people that get on Facebook and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for all the losses today," and it's so sad. It's almost like they're saying, I know a lot of people died today, but don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. I'm still here. It's.
And while that's not everybody's line of thinking, the sad truth is that is the case sometimes, and it.
Everyone's so me. And we just kind of fail to look at the big picture here.
So you know what? Yeah, you know what? And I love the people who put. I don't usually post on Facebook, but like as if
we're supposed to respect that opinion more because we got you out of the darkness.
We finally got to hear what you had to say. You know what? Be your own human and actually think about things and form your own opinion and say what you think. You don't have to qualify it or prepare us to hear what you have to think. You're allowed to have an opinion. Anybody who tells you you're not is wrong.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I want to hear what everybody thinks, whether you agree with us, don't agree with us, agree with one thing, not the other.
Right. Because even though this is kind of like an isolated kind of, I wouldn't call it a small issue because it's a real problem. But the bigger issue, it's huge. I think all of our rights are at stake here. I think the rest of the world kind of depends on what the United States does in this situation. So, I mean, I think it's time, not to be cliche of the band together, but band together in a sense that we all have to band together in information and just look at facts and start to kind of educate ourselves on what's really going on because we're being lied to.
Yeah, so before I lose my voice totally, this show's beyondaveragepodcast.com/014.
Hurry up.
Facebook is Beyond Average Podcast. Twitter is TweetBAP. And subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. And please share the video, like the video, dislike the video, react to the video, do something to the video, because we want to hear what people think. So,
And thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon.
well, next week will be a little bit less controversial with my main man Gary Fair. So,
Get back on the show.
stay tuned for that one.
All right. Adios.
See ya.